It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Yo, what is up, my viewers? How are you? One of these days, I really want to interview Dr. Zarkloff, Dr. Z. He was one of the first YouTubers that I really started watching. And while some of his content was corny because he would do little skits and different things, at least towards the end of his YouTube video thing or whatever, I don't know. I just enjoyed watching his stuff. So I think it might still be on YouTube. Just Google Dr. Z HVAC. I'm sure it'll come up. But he was a cool dude. So I liked his stuff. Haven't seen anything from him in a very long time. There was a bunch of OG people like Jim Petnato. I've heard that he's still around. He just kind of got sick of the comments is what I heard. I don't know if any of that's true. So hello to everybody. Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. So this is going out on Facebook and on YouTube. I don't know about the whole Facebook thing. I was trying to do the Instagram thing, but I'm kind of over it until Instagram decides to let me use streaming software to stream to Instagram, because it's just kind of a pain in the butt finding myself staring at different cameras and silly stuff, right? But hello to everybody. So for the new people, we get a lot of new people coming to these things, and I can tell by the comments and the emails and different things. You know, this is just a live stream that I try to do typically every Monday evening. I think I've been going strong, like the live streams in general, I think since 2018, somewhere-ish there, maybe late 2017. You know, it's just a Q&A live stream where I kind of try to consolidate some of the questions and answer them here. You'd be surprised how many emails and different comments that I get. that are repetitive. Like it's the same stuff over and over and over again. So I try to consolidate those questions and bring them into this format. So I really appreciate you. Thanks for coming here. And as the corny intro music, you guys, I know that my intro music is corny. I know that the introduction is corny. I find joy in the uncomfortableness of what I call the douche chills. So I like that stuff. I like the corniness. It is what it is, right? I've been trying to bring myself out more and more into my videos and my content and stuff, because for the longest time I kept myself so censored and so just wound tight that I found myself freaking out inside because of it. So I'm trying to be a little bit more me, right? I'm definitely still censored on the videos channel and on these live streams. Head on over to the HVAC Uncensored. That's my buddy Gil. Head on over to the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel, and you'll see a little bit more of the uncensored version of me. Here's some interesting stories. That's a show that my friends Adam, Bill, Joe, and myself do Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. And if you don't like bad words, you don't want to go over there. Okay, it is very uncensored, unfiltered, but it's just real for dudes. It's like imagining us meeting up at the bar, hanging out at the end of the week. Like that's exactly what the Overtime show, except for 2 out of the 4 people are sober, and that's kind of an epic bummer. But it, for real, I mean, it is what it is. It's fun stuff. So it's a great change to hang out. We're actually like teetering now. I'm not going to be as active as everybody else, but we're actually working on a new project. It's called the Cooler Heads podcast, and Brett Wetzel's kind of leading the boat on that one. And tentatively, we're still kind of working out the details, but it's going to be kind of my idea of it. And again, it's all changing. It's a rolling thing right now. It's just an idea at this moment, but it's going to be conversations on how we all make our own lives work. Again, just guys talking to guys. And, you know, again, it's all still kind of fluid. We're figuring everything out, but I'm thinking there's going to be special guests and maybe guest hosts and different people filling in. So it sounds like a cool little thing to do. So the Cooler Heads podcast, check it out. But yeah, that'll be coming soon. We haven't done anything yet, as if I needed anything else to do, right? Yeah, because I've got plenty of time for that. My buddy Ike would attest to the fact that I don't even have time to go in my own Discord server. So my buddy Ike has set up a Discord server many, many years ago for me, and I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. If y'all are interested in Discord, go check it out, go subscribe. Again, I'm not in there really very much, but you know, one of these days I'll start making an appearance again. It's really difficult, actually. So for me, life is good. I'm super thankful to be healthy. I'm super thankful to have a place to live, have cool air, you know. I mean, I am thankful for a lot of things. I've been reflecting a lot on that lately, and it just kind of puts things in perspective the older you get, right? You really start to think about things and be thankful for the little things. I'm not saying that I'm satisfied with, I don't even know where I'm going with that one, but anyways, I'll change the subject. I was kind of going off in a different direction, but so, this last weekend, I basically dove into my computer and dove into reading a bunch of information, watching a bunch of videos. So I am in the process right now of starting a series of replacing the air conditioner in my house. And I want to go about this a little different. I know that there's some undiagnosed mental issues in my head and the way that I focus on things and hyper focus and then shut everything off because I decided that I wanted to focus on my house project. My poor family basically had to deal with that this weekend because I was just diving deep into learning how to use the blower door, what the readings mean, doing some preliminary tests with the blower door, running a thermal imaging camera across my house while the blower door is running. Mind explosion with the infiltration. You can see the heat coming in the walls, coming from underneath the floors because I'm on a slab at my house. So watching the heat come from underneath the walls, it's really interesting when the blower door is running. So stay tuned. Have not filmed anything. Just having fun learning right now. So my poor wife has to deal with the fact that her living room has a bunch of boxes in it. I've got a blower door, a duct blaster, true flow grid, like all these different tools sitting in my front living room, and I've got more tools. This whole project is going to be really fun and interesting, right? And I'm probably going to be bringing in some help. Have not decided on anything yet. All that I know right now is I'm focused on the science of it. Again, I'm not going to be making a video on being a building performance contractor and how good I am or anything like that, because I know nothing about this. So it's really interesting to be learning. I will say that I'm very thankful to my friends out there and to the people that are choosing to help me with this project, because literally I'm having people message me and give me like solid advice and give me connections with people that are so smart, and it's really cool, and it's very it's really humbling, if that sounds weird, to be a part of my own project. It's really weird, but it's cool. So we're going to be replacing the air conditioner in my house, but we're not just replacing the air conditioner. We're evaluating the house. We're looking at it, looking at the infiltration, finding out what's going to be my best bet. Should I spray foam my attic? Should I go with a completely inverter system? Like all these different things working through my head. I did kind of make a little bit of a decision, and I may change my mind eventually, but I've kind of thought about going with one of the cheaper inverter systems. And the reason why, again, this is what I'm thinking today. I may change my mind tomorrow, but the reason why I'm thinking about this is, like, for the price, you kind of can't beat it, right? I mean, you know, if I could buy like a Bosch or an EcoAir or something like that just has a smart condensing unit with a dumb air handler, right? I don't have humidity, so do I really need full communication? Do I really need a fully variable blower and everything if I don't have humidity at my house? Like, I'm kind of leaning away from going crazy full inverter. Now, with communication, like we're talking the high-end Lennox carriers, Train, that kind of stuff, I might go that path in the future, but I just feel like if I go with one of the super most high-tech, high-efficiency systems, like I'm going to be out a lot of my own money, right? They're going to be really expensive. And it's not that I'm afraid to spend money, because it's my comfort and it's energy bills and different things that I want to put in a high-efficiency system. But for the price of like a Bosch or an EcoAir, something like that, or even there's a few other ones too, with an air handler, I literally feel like I need to go that path because of how stupid cheap it is, and just try it. And then in a year or two, if I don't like it, at least I'm not wondering if it would have worked out, right? So instead of just going like full on with a, $15,000 system in my own home, like, I'm thinking about going that path. But anyways, I digress. I can't share too much. Now, I haven't filmed anything. I haven't really done any work. I'm really just doing research and trying to coordinate people helping me in different things. So it's really interesting. Let's look at the chat and see what I'm missing in here, okay? Reading through here. Am I going to post a video on the home AC project? I'm talking about that right now. Haven't filmed anything yet. So reading down through the chats. I do get discounts for being a contractor. Yeah. I mean, I would get a few discounts for sure from the manufacturers and equipment manufacturers for sure. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, right. All right, cool. Well, so if you guys have questions or things that you want me to cover, feel free to put them in the chat, put them in caps lock. You can comment on Facebook or on YouTube. I can see it all. And we'll see. So I am always getting these questions about why, and let's step back. I have a lot of viewers to my channel. I have homeowners, I have business owners, I have restaurant owners, I have technicians, I have HVAC business owners, I have manufacturers, all kinds of different people watching my content, right? Some of them might be watching it thinking this guy's a hack, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. That's fine. Some people may say, I don't ever want to work like that. Hey, if you get something from it, whether it be don't do what I do or do what I do, hey, at least you get something from it, right? But I get these questions all the time from people, and this one's clearly not a technician. They're clearly not a business owner in HVAC, but someone was criticizing, and again, I'm okay with criticism, right? But I'm not harping at the person. I'm just pointing out the fact that they were criticizing me, and this happens a lot, that I'm using these horrible, toxic, ozone-depleting refrigerants, right? And sometimes I get these comments from European countries because, those things are outlawed there. R22 is like completely outlawed there, and different refrigerants are outlawed, right? We're way behind on some of the refrigerant changes. But it's not just the refrigerants. It's, you know, why do I work on these horrible systems that the wiring is just a mess? I get that one from European countries all the time. And it's not that I'm upset with the criticism. The point that I'm trying to make is I have enough stuff in my life to worry about that I'm not going to stress trying to be the first person to stop using R22 or to be a trendsetter, right? With refusing to work on this equipment, refusing to do overtime work, refusing. I'm not an elitist. I don't feel like I'm better than anybody. And I'm not the person to make that stance, okay? Nor am I the person to blatantly break laws and do things. But furthermore, I kind of just go in the path with my business that I found myself getting worked up and wanting to be a trendsetter many years ago with changes, and I'm going to start being a better contractor, and we're going to pull permits on every job, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, right? But, you know, I'm just kind of going with the flow. I have enough stuff going on. So when they make a new regulation that says I can no longer carry R22 in my vans, then I will stop carrying R22 in my vans. Until then, I'm going to keep using it. Okay. Now the argument, well, you use that, eventually it's going to leak out of that unit. Yeah, but so is any other refrigerant. And mark my words, that R12, R22, 410A, every single refrigerant that they come out with for the next 20 years is going to have something bad about it. So I'm going to do my best to follow the rules. I'm going to do my best to be a good person, to make sure that I'm not venting illegally refrigerants or doing different things that aren't right, okay? But I am not going to be the person to stand up here and say, don't use that refrigerant because it's toxic and I need to be a hippie for the rest of my life and blah, blah, blah. No, okay? If that's your feelings, and so be it. That's fine. It's okay, all right? You can do you, I can do me, but I'm not going to be this person that's going to change the world. I'm just staying in my lane, living my life, trying to spend as much time with my family and focus on that as much as possible. Okay? So that's me. Don't take offense to anything that I said. All right? But that's just how I am. Let me see. Let's see. Mike B says he is required to have R22 on his van. Yeah, my customers still want me to sell them R22 all the time. I go through ridiculous amounts of R22 all the time, okay? Still do, because that equipment is out there and will be out there for years to come. Now, the prices go up. Sure, if my customers don't want to pay it, then we find other solutions. But, I mean, the funny thing is, again, I don't get political. I don't get anything on that. But on here, the funny thing is that for the longest time, we were complaining about CO2 in the atmosphere because of farms and methane and all these different things. But then now we've embraced CO2 as the best thing in the world. And I'm not arguing that it's not. I realize the efficiency and everything. But the point that I'm trying to make is there's always going to be someone to say that this chemical is bad, this is bad, this is bad, or we'll always find out later in life. All we can do is try to be safe, try to be good people, follow the rules, and just stay in our, or at least for me, I just stay in my lane. I'm not saying that's how you have to live your life, okay? So let's see what else we got going on in here. You have to work in facilities that in your heart you don't like. You do, however, see the need for them. So you just keep your head down and do your job as best as you can. Will Speed? That is a great point, okay? There's times and places. And guess what? To Will, I'm saying this, and to the other person, I'm saying this. If you chose not to work in those places and you felt that you wouldn't work in the kinds of restaurants that I do because the place that they buy their food from supports this person or does this or does that, so be it. I will respect your decisions. That's the thing. And, you know, the people on my chat, you're always great. I don't have to worry about you. But there's so much frustration and so much anger out there and hate out there. What's the point? Like, what's the point? Check this out. My buddy wants to say hi. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come say hi. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, hi, buddy. This is my doggy, Luke. Hi. Hi. Oh, yes. No, don't lick my tongue. That's gross. All right, get down. Get out of here. So that's my buddy Luke. He's a silver Labrador retriever. He's about a year and some change old. But anyways, yeah, we all got to respect each other and just let each other have different opinions and whatever. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go with this topic. Let's move on to the next one. All right. On a freezer, what can cause the compressor to cycle on and off and have high superheat? Sublime Gamer, there's going to be a lot of different variables in that. There's a lot of holes in that question. So not saying it's a bad question, but I think that you're better off shoot me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Give me all the symptoms of what's going on, and I'll try to answer your question a little bit more. But I mean, there's so many different things that can cause a compressor to cycle on and off. There's so many different things that can cause high superheat. It's hard to say. So that's a big subject to ask a question on. So how was my Monday? My Monday was good, Cole. It was good. It was just a normal week. Did an exhaust fan install today, then did an ice machine service call. Was able to actually finish both of them. Well, no. I was able to finish one of the ice machines. I actually worked on 2 ice machines, but it was nice. It was a nice day. It was nice to get home in time to be able to do this live stream and talk with you all. So let me see what else we got going on in the chat. Remember, if you guys have questions, throw them in caps lock. They used to use mercury as a filler for teeth. Yes, they did. In my experience, what are the advantages and disadvantages of fin and tube versus microchannel? Foster Dad David. So I want to point something out. I am interested, all right? I'm not going to promise any of these things are going to happen, but I am going to be in a position to be able to ask a manufacturer some real questions in about 2 weeks. I'm going to be flying out to Georgia to go do some interviews with Heatcraft to film some stuff, Heatcraft Refrigeration. Now, I kind of already have an idea and a pretty solid list of things that I want to talk about them or to talk to them about, but I'm also open to questions or suggestions. So if you guys have suggestions, real stuff, right? Not stupid opinions. Let's have real questions about something that Heatcraft Refrigeration does or doesn't do and why they don't do if it comes up, okay? The odds of me asking questions besides my list are pretty slim, but I do want to get your guys' input, okay? So if it comes up, if you guys have a question, feel free to email it to me at hvacrvideos@gmail.com because I am going to kind of put some things together. We are very limited on the time that I'm spending with them because we have a lot of stuff to do, but this will be coming soon. But anyways, the question that you asked, advantages and disadvantages to tube and fin and microchannel condensers. Well, the biggest advantage versus disadvantage. Tube and fin condensers take a lot of refrigerant. You can have an equivalent air conditioner, a 5-ton air conditioner. I've seen them where one has microchannel, one does not. The microchannel will have a refrigerant charge of like 5 pounds of refrigerant, maybe 4 pounds of refrigerant. And I kid you not, on the tube and fin, we'll have 16 pounds of refrigerant. Same tonnage, just different condensers, okay? So that's one interesting thing is that you have to use, or you potentially, the internal volume of the system is a lot smaller when you use aluminum microchannel coils, okay? There's advantages to tube and fin condensers. On the service side, they're much easier to repair a tube and fin condenser than to repair a microchannel condenser. Oftentimes on microchannel condensers, there's not really a refrigerant leak repair per se on the condensers. What you typically do is cut the entire circuit. You delete a circuit of the condenser out. So the interesting thing about microchannel condensers is unlike a tube and fin condenser where you have several passes, right? Refrigerant going through the condenser and about halfway through refrigerant, right? And then comes out. On microchannels, they're all separate rows. So each tiny little passage you see is its own condenser. And it's just stacked into a giant manifold full of those passageways. So that is very interesting about the microchannel. But disadvantages to microchannel is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit in this live stream, is the potential for restrictions. Because if you ever see a cutaway, and I have one floating around, I need to get a... That's what I need to do. If I have manufacturers that watch these live streams, don't let me get sidetracked on the microchannels, but if I have manufacturers that watch these live streams or my videos, and you guys have like demo products, educational material, like Sporlan sends me cutaways of expansion valves and all kinds of different parts, send them to me. We'll get them on the show. That way I have visual aids. But anyways, I've seen a cutaway of a microchannel condenser, and it's really interesting how small the passageways are. So I'd like to get a cutaway of one here for in my office to have something that's nice and small that I can show everybody. But there's a lot of other things microchannel is good with. They're highly efficient. Again, you don't need as much refrigerant, but they're more susceptible to restrictions. Microchannel are somewhat easy to clean. I'm not going to say they're completely easier than tube and fin, but they're somewhat easy to clean. But you know, when you get into harsh environments with grease, microchannels are a nightmare to clean because microchannel condensers, you can only use certain cleaners on. And oftentimes the coil cleaners that we use, insert the blue color of a new Calgon chemical, of a Refrigeration Technologies chemicals, those cleaners are pretty much going to be very similar, and they start eating away at the aluminum, whether it be on tube and fin or on microchannel, but you definitely don't want to use them on microchannel. So, you know, there's all kinds of different things, but, you know, that's a good question. There's a lot of good and bad to both, okay? Let's see. Let me get down to the list. What's the best website to study for an HVAC exam or suggestions? Just Dustin Durham, hvacrschool.com. That is going to be your hands down best website to get HVAC content. The cool thing, that is Brian Orr's website, hvacrschool.com. He has so much amazing content on his website. Brian himself is a genius, right? And then he surrounds himself with geniuses. And then he has tech tips, he has articles, he has videos. So definitely go to hvacrschool.com. All right, let's see what else we got going here. What's the longest line set I have seen or installed? Jake, I don't know that I've ever really paid that much attention to a line set. I mean, maybe 500 to 1,000 feet, because I've worked in some industrial settings with stuff. That's probably the longest. I mean, we're talking measured length, not equivalent length, because equivalent length, that multiplier is huge. All right. Do you guys know the difference between equivalent length and actual measured length? So when you're talking about piping, whether it be ductwork or refrigeration piping, the total equivalent length takes into account the elbows and reduction spots and different things, and you have a total equivalent length line set, right? So it's a measurement. So let's just say you measure a line set that is 100 feet long. Well, the total equivalent length, right, the internal volume of the system, considering how difficult it is for the refrigerant to make turns and passages, can be sometimes triple, if not quadruple, the measured length. It's really interesting, and that goes for ductwork and for refrigeration. And it's really interesting to actually do the math. Like, if you ever get an opportunity, just go to a piece of equipment and measure a section of pipe, whether it be a package air conditioner or a walk-in cooler. Just get a general measurement of how long the line set is, and then sit down and look for total equivalent length conversion numbers and add in all the elbows and reducers and different things. And it's really interesting to see how long the total equivalent length is versus the measured length. It's really, really cool. All right. Let's see what else we got in here. I'm reading through the chat right now. What is the biggest unit I've ever worked on? HVAC Bandito. I don't do a lot of big stuff, so maybe 35 tons, maybe. It's just like a couple boxcar units that I used to service. So I was not very smart. Cole says that applies to venting and gas work as well. Yes, definitely. Anything that there's flow through, whether it be fluid, air, which air kind of is a fluid too, but air, all those different things. Anything with flow, there's restrictions and there's pressure buildups and different things like that. And there's reasons when it comes to refrigeration piping. Did you know that? Again, fun fact, and you know, if you guys want more of the refrigeration knowledge, you definitely need to go check out the Advanced Refrigeration podcast. My buddy Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass do that podcast together, and they are both supermarket guys. Brett's a training manager for a mega company, and Kevin is a installation, I believe an installation supervisors, I think is what he is, for a really, really big mega company too. And they're both really smart refrigeration dudes. So they have a lot of cool talks and conversations, and it's really interesting. So check it out. Just go to advancedrefrigerationpodcast.com. I'm sure you can find all that. Go to YouTube, all that different things. How do you know the size of a refrigerant pipe from looking at it? Jacob, well, once you start working in it enough, you can look at I don't know what you mean by that question. Do you mean like the length of it? You would have to measure or come up with some rough numbers. But if you're looking at, looking at a piece of pipe itself, well, once you've been in the trade long enough and you've been working long enough, you can look and say that's 3/8, that's ½ inch, that's whatever. Or if you're European countries watching this, you know the millimeter measurements and different things. But it just becomes something that you can do. But you can literally just grab a tape measure if you're in the United States, measure it, and you can get an idea what size pipe it is. And it just, or if you're not in the trade and you just watch these videos, just find a number, right? Just pick a piece of pipe, just say ½ inch pipe and say it's 100 feet long, right? But then draw out a maze of 90s and bends and different things, and then just do the math on that and just guess the number, and you'll just still be blown away. So, All right. I'm going to cross a couple things off my list. I have a list of things in front of me to talk about. So I already talked about that one. So let's move on. Oh, so funny thing. A while back, I made a video. I don't remember what the title was, but it was missing the evaporator, right? It was a new restaurant that was going to open up, and it was a business acquaintance. I'm not going to say a friend, but a business acquaintance that I had that I'd worked with previously at other locations had gone to this new location, and they brought me over there saying, hey, can you give us an idea what it would cost to do this? At first, I was only there to look at refrigeration. That's all I was there. They said their walk-in cooler wasn't working, and that's why I walked in. But I went deeper because I'm a big picture person, right? So they didn't ask me to spend 4 hours there or 3 hours or whatever it was. But I went way deep and started looking at air conditioning, started looking at all these different things, and I made a list of issues, and I went downstairs and I presented it to them. And they didn't go with my quote. I never heard back from them again until like a month or two ago. One of the things that I had talked about in the video was I looked that they had a bunch of split systems, like, and this is a small location in a shopping mall, and they had like 3 or 4 5-ton split systems crammed in their tiny little building, and they were just in really bad locations. And the building was gutted when I was there, so I was looking at it, and I mentioned to the person that I knew and that person's boss, I was like, hey, you guys got some serious issues here. And then they were very intrigued, and I gave them a list and all these problems. And anyways, so the air conditioning system, they recently just reached out to me and were like, hey, we're having a lot of issues with the air conditioning system at this location. We were wondering if you could come. First off, they kind of ghosted me and never even contacted me to say why they didn't go with my bid or anything, right? And then I didn't get paid for it. It wasn't because I didn't even give them a bill. I was pretty confident that the work was going to go through and I was going to get the work, so I didn't even think about bringing up to them that I charge for my estimates. I don't give estimates for free. Unless it's a existing very loyal customer, I charge for my time. I'm not out there in the free estimate game. But anyways, I didn't charge them, and then they didn't go with me. And I told them I would, when I saw the air conditioning, and I mentioned in that video, I said I wouldn't even work on this, period. I just look at it and say you need to replace it because it's just dumb what you have to do to get to it. So they called me recently saying, hey, yeah, our air conditioning is just not working. Can you give us a call? And I was like, yeah, I'm not even going to answer that phone. Like, I just listened to the voicemail and said, delete. I want nothing to do with that air conditioning system. So I just thought that was funny, though, but hey, it is what it is. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. I see all kinds of cool people. I see questions from Facebook. Let's see. You're thinking about hiring an HVAC helper to train to be a refrigeration tech, Sebastian's asking. If you're at that point in your career, I say go for it, okay? But some things to consider before you want to hire an apprentice. Obviously, make sure you know your numbers in your business. Make sure you understand your prices. Make sure you have enough room built into your pricing. I hope you're not the cheapest person in town, because if you're the cheapest person in town, you're going to have a hard time bringing an apprentice on. Now, I'm not saying that because of any reason. The point I'm trying to make is you need to make sure your business is selling itself properly. You need to be priced correctly. So that way, even as a single person business, theoretically, you should be priced like you had employees. That way, when you do hire employees, you don't have to have just like all of a sudden this significant jump in your pricing. You want consistency and slow increases of pricing instead of just all of a sudden one day I got to hire an employee and your prices go up $20 an hour because you now realize that you have to pay for that employee, right? And sometimes whatever you pay him might be double or triple what his true employment costs are. So you got to think about all that different stuff when it comes to business. Now, I am in no way am a business expert, right? I did not start my business, right? A lot of people email me saying, can you give me advice on starting my business? I didn't start my business, right? I'm a second generation. My dad started this business when I was a little kid. I was like 6 years old. My dad started this business. Ironically, I worked with him my entire life, and in junior high, I told him I didn't want to do this because it sucked, right? I didn't want this career, but I made it through high school. I came to work for him, but I digress on that one, right? But so, and you're going to hear that a lot. If you're new to this, I go off on tangents all the time, so I apologize. And I also need to learn to keep drinking something while I'm talking because after last week's live stream, my voice hurt for 2 days. Thought I had COVID. So, when it comes to hiring people and stuff, you need to make sure that you know your business and your price right, so that way you can bring on someone and it's not a freak out, right? So make sure you have enough money in your pricing to hire someone. Remember, don't be like me. Don't be complacent. I've done this so many times in the past. I don't anymore, but I've done this so many times in the past where I become complacent in my business and I ignore my employees in a way, right? I don't even pay attention to the fact that they're not a good fit for my business. And then here you are 3 years later. Now, I don't have that. Like I said, I've gotten a lot better at that. I don't do that anymore, but I have done it in the past where you're in the zone and you're just dealing with things, and then all of a sudden it's completely out of control. It's really easy to do that. So make sure you're paying attention to your business, and make sure you're also paying attention to yourself and your family. This is a whole difficult thing. And all you asked me was, is it time to hire an employee? These are all things that you need to be prepared for and need to consider before you want to hire an employee. Please, 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 I'm asking you, don't just hire an employee and throw him to the wolves, right? Train him, evaluate him, educate him, and put him out there when he's ready to be out there. Now, it may be that he's a genius and you can hire him, give him a 2-week ride along, and then all of a sudden he's off to the races. But that's very, very rare. And oftentimes you're going to hurt that person and you're going to hurt yourself. So train someone right, build them up right if you can. Make sure that's built into your thing. But if you can meet all those things, I highly suggest you hire someone and train someone, because we need more people in this trade. So, all right. Do I have any helpful tips when working on built-up systems or tips with O6E and O6D compressors? I am not the person to talk about that. What you're going to want to do is definitely check out the Advanced Refrigeration podcast. Brett might still be in here. I can't really see the chat at the moment, but Advanced Refrigeration podcast with Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass, they can talk a lot about built-up systems. They can talk about O6E and O6D, Carlisle compressors, and, you know, yeah, those guys would be the ones. I have very limited experience with those bigger compressors. I have worked on them. I've worked on ice machines with Carlisles. I've worked on old carrier equipment, definitely, but I don't do it enough to be the best person to give you tips or advice. Just don't try to lift one if you don't have multiple people. That's the best advice I can give you. All right. So in a recent video, I had a condenser that I mentioned I thought was possibly restricted. There's a lot of variables in that video. Something that I want to say, and I've been saying this a lot, is I'm trying to reiterate the fact that I never planned on these videos turning into what they were turned into, right? I never planned on it turning into this thing where a bunch of people watch and questions and all this different stuff. I really didn't, okay? Thanks, Will, for being a supporter for so long. So when I film my videos originally started as a training aid for my employees. I started making these videos because, again, going off on a tangent as usual, I put myself in a position where I was ignoring my employees for a very long time. I let it get out of hand, and I had 4 people all quit within a very, very short time period. At the time, I was a 5-person company. So literally, it was just me, okay? It was rough. And we hired an apprentice really quick and then worked our way up and got out of that situation. But there was a lot of fault, right? Employees had issues, different issues. But again, we were just kind of complacent with things, and we're ignoring people and just doing stuck in our zone. And I found myself having to hire a whole new workforce, right? I got my new workforce, but I found myself having to pay a lot of money for experienced people, which they're worth the money. They're very much worth what I pay them. But I found myself having issues with the fact that they're experienced, but not experienced in the way that I do things. And y'all watch these videos, so you know that the way that I do things is rather meticulous and rather random too. It's not, I'm not always meticulous. Like I am meticulous where it needs to be, but then in other things I don't focus so much on. So I'm different. I know, right? I'm sure, like I said, there's an undiagnosed thing there, but I'm losing my train of thought on that one real quick. But anyways, I started making the videos, and I never planned on them being what they are. Okay. So I don't go into a video and I don't say, I'm going to talk about every single topic that I'm working through, right? I just randomly in my head start talking about something that I'm doing. And the point, again, as I've said it many times, the point I'm trying to make is I'm not a perfect educator. I don't consider myself to be an educator. What I do is I film the way that my brain works. When I work, I talk to myself. My existing employees laugh because I was just telling one of my guys this story the other day. He laughs because when I said, people say, people ask me how I charge the customers when I'm sitting there talking to my phone. It's no different than the way that I work. My guys constantly are saying, "What? Are you talking to me?" They're asking me all the time because even when I'm not filming, I talk to myself. And all of this is going to be evidence for my trial 20 years from now when they realize that I am insane, right? There's all these things that I'm admitting on here. But I don't go into there thinking that I'm going to film this perfect video and cover every topic that I need to. I'm trying. I mean, when I try to think of something as I'm doing it, I go, you know what? I should start talking about this. Sometimes I'll go in depth about something that I feel like I should, but for the most part, you're just hearing the random thoughts in my head. So I apologize if things are missing. Okay. I try, and I do appreciate your all's feedback. Okay. When you guys send me emails and say, how come you didn't check this? I learn from that too. Okay. Sometimes I do check those things though. Sometimes, like for instance, someone in my recent video said, how come you didn't clean the vent screen on that VFD? Because there was a variable frequency drive in the unit. I actually did. I didn't catch it on film, right? Because when I was cleaning the condenser, I blew all the water out with my air blower, and I had my air blower, so I blew out the compressor section and I blew the VFD through too. But I don't always show that stuff because, again, I'm not going into these saying I'm going to film my entire day. I just turn the phone on whenever I can, okay? And yes, for all the people that asked to, I film every single video, well, a lot of my videos with my phone. Every once in a while I turn on a GoPro, but GoPros are hard. These are really easy, and I don't have a lot of time to play around with things. So boom, I hit a button, boom, I hit record, and I start talking. And it's an amazing camera and an amazing phone all into one, right? So this one is a Samsung S22 Ultra. Yeah, it's the big giant Samsung phone, and 4K filming, all that good stuff. It's awesome. So, all right. Why do I get frustrated about customers' neglect? Again, recent video, I get this from people in the videos too when I vent frustrations. Why is it that I'm upset that I'm out there on a Friday night at 10 o'clock defrosting an evaporator coil? When they're paying me a lot of money, I should be thankful. I am thankful, but I should be happy about it. Well, I'm not always happy because I'm human. So why do I show complaining in my videos? Because remember, if you've been paying attention since the beginning of the stream, if you didn't, I'll recap right now. I'm trying to be better about being the true me, okay? When I turn on a camera and I just pretend like I'm so smart and I know how to do all this different stuff and I'm bulletproof because I don't show emotion, that's not real, and I don't think that's doing anyone any good because humans are flawed. We have character traits. We have issues, right? We get frustrated. It's okay. But I think that in one of the things that I do try to share is that I'm a normal person. So anybody can have the knowledge that I have. Anybody can be better than me. You just have to try. So, now that I talked about all that, but I mean, you just have to try. I'm sorry. You have to try, and you have to make sure that you just do the best that you can. So yes, I was frustrated. Yes, I vented in videos every once in a while. No, I don't share that frustration with the customer, at least not to the fullest extent. I'm calculated. If I am frustrated, I might tell a customer, this is a bit frustrating, but I'm not going to show them my anger. I may not show them everything that I show in the video because the video, again, I started filming these for my own employees. It's kind of morphed into something else, but these videos, and I have no problem with residential homeowners, with random computer people, with mechanics, with business owners watching my videos too. These truly have become, well, they started as for my technicians and they are for other technicians now too. I appreciate, and every once in a while I may mention something about that might help someone who's not a technician, but they're focused on technicians. I don't do these videos because people pay me to do them. Now, I do have partners that I work with and different things, but it's not, what I'm trying to say is I'm not owned or bought by anybody. Nobody has their agenda and tells me what to talk about or how to do this stuff. I just like to be me. Okay. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. All right, so why do I use copper instead of PVC? That's another question I get all the time. Good grief. Why do I use copper instead of PVC? I don't like PVC. In Southern California, we have high UV, and my opinion, when there is PVC pipe on the roof or used downstairs, especially around ice machines, it just gets broken. PVC gets very brittle when it is cold and gets very brittle when it gets old and sun just UV killed, right? So when you're on a roof, there's nothing worse than pulling your hose across the roof and catching a PVC drain line and it shattering at the roof deck with no room to fix it. And all you were doing was a preventative maintenance that maybe is a loss leader for you, right? This has happened to me so many times in the past. I have preventative maintenances that I don't necessarily profit off of, right? In the grand scheme, I do, but you don't necessarily profit off of everything. So you're out there just cleaning equipment, trying to drum up work, right? You're paying attention. You're not doing anything unethical. You're not causing any damage. But when you're doing a maintenance, that's an opportunity to find work. Just look and listen. So anyways, you're up there just trying to pay attention, and you drag your hose and the PVC drain line shatters and it just creates a problem, okay? There's nothing worse than working on an ice machine, and if you've done this, you know my pain. An ice machine in a soffit where you can't get beside it, right? Pushed back, where one of the guys was cleaning the floors and he took the squeegee and he shattered the drain line, right? And it's PVC. So then now you're laying under the bin. If you can get under it, if it's a lower profile one, you're not laying under, you're reaching under with your arms trying to repair PVC pipe. It's just dumb. So why do I use copper? Because it's easy and it doesn't deteriorate like PVC. Okay. Yeah. Tweakers like to get up there and steal that. That was my tweaker video. That one's the one that gets the most questions about why I use copper, but really it's just because it works a lot better. If you live in Florida and you guys understand the term elephant snot, right? It's something that happens between chemical reactions with evaporator coils and drain lines and PVC drain lines. You get this just gunk that's coming out of your pipes and your drains from your AC units. And some of that, not all of it, but some of that would be prevented by using copper, because copper has different ways that it reacts with that stuff that can help to inhibit some of the slime buildup. I'm not saying copper would fix everything, but copper is expensive and that can be difficult for customers too. So, all right, let's get to the chat and see what I'm missing in here. How do you make the customers understand they're an idiot without calling them an idiot? You say, dang, whatever idiot did this was an idiot. And then, you know, just casually in front of the customer. No, funny sidetrack is because I'm getting sidetracked like crazy today. I had a customer that used to be a pain in the butt. It's a whole thing. Asked me about it on the overtime show, but he used to be a pain in the butt. And, it was just difficult with this guy all the time. He was a manager. And then one day he called me and he's like, yeah, my walk-in's down. I need you here now. And like, as I walk in, he goes, yeah. He goes, it was all iced up and, I was trying to de-ice it. So, you know, and I'm like, okay. And I walk in there and I put my gauges on it and it's completely out of refrigerant. This is a walk-in cooler evaporator with condenser on the roof. It's completely out of refrigerant. And, went downstairs. Yeah, he was trying to de-ice it with a steak knife. This was the greatest bill I'd ever given someone. I was so happy to give them this giant bill because this dude was just a pure pain in the butt. That's how I told him he was an idiot, was I handed him a really big bill for what he could have paid me $600 for to come out and defrost his evaporator, right? And instead it cost him dang near $10,000 because this was a big equipment. So it was interesting. That was a fun one to hand over. Let's see what else I got in the chat. You'll stick to commercial equipment at your happy place. I like commercial. Commercial is fun, but I am having fun. For the new people that are in here, I'm working on a home project and I'm doing some research. Well, I'm going to be changing the air conditioner in my own house. I'm just going to be quick about this, but I'm doing a bunch of research on the building science side, just an intro to. So this weekend I was just completely lost in blower doors and how to use them and the science behind them. And next, I'm going to get into the duct testers, and so it's going to be a fun project, so stay tuned. Okay, so it is that time. I know it's still hot. I know it's still summer, but it is that time that we start embedding this into people's brains, okay? Head pressure control valves. And I'm sorry, prime time, if you're in here, because I know you hate these things, okay? But head pressure control valves, they are not difficult. They really aren't. Okay, head pressure control valves, they're there for a reason, right? And we need to understand that. No, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say 95% of the head pressure control valves that are replaced are not bad because the valve itself failed. They're usually bad because of contamination, okay? 95% of the time would be my guess, right? So with head pressure control valves comes other things that we need to understand. This same thing is very much the same that's happening right now with electronic expansion valves and everybody's fear of an electronic expansion valve. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 90% of the time, the electronic expansion valve is not itself at fault, and it is contamination from people not doing what they're supposed to be doing, okay? So head pressure control valves need extra refrigerant in their systems when they are installed. So a head pressure control valve is there for one reason and one reason only. That is to help the expansion valve to operate properly. The reason why you have a head pressure control valve on the roof is to create a pressure differential in the system so that way the expansion valve can continue to operate properly. Expansion valves have a very limited scope of work that they can do, and they can only work within certain parameters. So we have to have a somewhat small, a decent pressure differential from one side of that valve to the other. When it's cold outside, head pressure in your refrigerants, condensing temperatures drop. When that happens, the expansion valve no longer has the pressure differential, theoretically, that it needs to operate properly. So we have something that creates artificial pressure differential. Well, it's not artificial, but it artificially creates a pressure differential in the system, right? It makes the system think that it's hotter outside. That's the easiest way to explain it. When the head pressure control valve makes the system think that it's hotter outside, the head pressure goes up in the system because the refrigerant reacts to the temperatures, right? So the head pressure goes up, the pressure differential stabilizes out to where it should be, and your expansion valve continues to work properly, okay? There's other ways you can do it, fan cycling, condenser splitting, different things like that, but head pressure controls valves is what we're talking about right now. With a head pressure control valve, you need a certain amount of refrigerant. We call it the flooded charge or the winter charge. Okay, got into an interesting discussion, not a fight, not an argument. It was a civil conversation between several people on Gary McCready's channel, and it was a really, really great conversation that we had. Gary McCready is with HVAC Know-It-All. Another thing, too, I know a lot of people criticize him about his name, HVAC Know-It-All, but it's actually a pretty interesting story, and it's sarcasm. You have to understand sarcasm because he's basically saying that he doesn't know all HVAC and he never will. Gary's a cool dude. And but anyways, there was an interesting discussion about winter charge or the flooded charge in a system. And Gary and I were talking back and forth. We had a great conversation, but he has worked on systems that weren't properly designed. So Gary was talking about having to go back in the winter to put more refrigerant in a system, but then having to come back in the summer. And what it actually is that his system is more than likely not designed correctly. And Gary knew this, but we were just having a great discussion because of a statement that I made that you don't need to go remove the refrigerant in the summer and you could leave it in there. And then we had a great discussion about it. But the point is, there's a lot of misinformation out there about head pressure control valves, and they're really, really not that difficult. Now, there's several different types of head pressure control valves. There's holdback valves, there's LAC valves, there's OROA valves. There's a bunch of different ones, right? But they all have the same principle. They're there to create a pressure differential across the expansion valve so it can operate better. So with that being said, we need to add extra refrigerant. Okay, we need to make sure that we understand how to calculate that extra refrigerant. Your best bet is to lean on the manufacturer. If you want to get your hands dirty, you can calculate the flooded charge yourself. If you're using a tube and fin condenser, you can look up a Sporlan document 90-30-1. And in that document, it has head pressure control valve charging. That is not specific to systems that only have Sporlan. If you have a head pressure control valve, the math is still the same. You can calculate your needed flooded charge, but your system has to be designed for that head pressure control valve in the very beginning because there's oftentimes going to be a lot of extra refrigerant. In the case of Gary McCready's thing, his system wasn't designed like that. So that's why I say it was a great conversation about it. But The point is we need to do research. We need to look into that. Now, if you're dealing with microchannel condensers, there is some formulas. They're rather difficult to follow. Majority of the manufacturers that I've talked to with microchannel condensers that have head pressure control valves, they typically tell me, I've heard this from Russell and I've heard this from Heatcraft several times, is that you're better off just putting in the maximum amount of refrigerant that the system is published to be able to hold. And that'll typically get you in the ballpark, because with microchannels, you're talking about very, very narrow passageways. So the math is really intricate and it's rather difficult. That is actually something that I am going to talk to Heatcraft about, maybe get them on camera talking about this and maybe suggesting that they make it a little bit easier for us to be able to calculate flooded charge on microchannel condensers. But we need to want to learn. We can't just be complacent, like I said that I do sometimes. We can't just be complacent and not ever better ourselves or educate ourselves. We constantly need to be looking for a reason that, you know, we may have room to learn. Okay, some of the best moments in my career have been when I have been humbled by the fact that I didn't know what I was doing for a certain period of time. It's really interesting to look back and think, whoa, I just learned this little tidbit of knowledge and I can apply that to so many things that I can remember previously in my career that could have helped me through those situations so much better. I say this is my opinion. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. If you're wrong, that's an opportunity to learn. And if we continue to learn, we just better ourselves. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Is there actually a person named Ted that started the whole TED Talk thing? That's something I have a question about. All right. See what we got. Am I aware of any dryers that make use of molecular sieves? Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the whole component of a dryer, is using, well, not the component, but yeah, that's the point. Yes, there is dryers that use molecular sieves. Yeah. All right. I heard someone saying they're doing an intelligent install. There's not a whole lot difficult when you're doing an intelligent install. Okay, I'm going to give you some good advice. First off, whether you've done intelligent installs or not, this is Heatcraft Refrigeration's name of their smart evaporator system. I work on them a lot, so I have decent knowledge with them. One of the coolest things that I learned about Heatcraft intelligence systems, and this goes for the QRC and the beacons too, when they have the electronic expansion valves, one of the coolest things, and I don't think this is in any technical data, but this is a really great piece of knowledge. When you're working on a Heatcraft intelligence system, when you get a new evaporator, the electronic expansion valve on the Heatcraft systems is their shutoff valve. That is their solenoid valve also. It stops the flow. It closes down completely when the system's satisfied. But when they ship it in the new condition, that expansion valve is halfway open. It's open. So do not apply power to a Heatcraft intelligence system until you are done brazing, because the EEV's open, you set the evaporator up, you pipe it in, you go onto the roof, you put your nitrogen in the condenser, and you flow nitrogen without having to open the EEVs. They're shipped in the mid position. That's one of the coolest things that I learned. Hence, if you ever start up a Heatcraft Intelligent for the first time, when you turn it on, you will hear the EEV close, because it's a stepper valve. That is so cool that they do that. That is one cool thing about the intelligence. The next thing I'm going to say is, if you don't know this, Heatcraft recommends that on their intelligent evaporators that you have a dedicated power source for that evaporator from the breaker panel. They do not want you tying the 115 volt evaporator into the lighting circuit inside the walk-in cooler. They do not want you powering your evaporator off of the condensing unit. If you're working on a walk-in freezer, traditional systems had electrical wires run from the defrost clock on the roof down to the evaporator, and those wires powered the evaporator. Heatcraft doesn't want you to use their intelligent or their beacon or their QRC evaporators unless you have a dedicated evaporator power source. The best answer I've gotten from them, I mean, I've been told this many times and I've heard this, there is a 24 volt transformer in the evaporator, and they don't want that transformer to have any kind of voltage dips. So the odds of it happening on a system, maybe that the wire isn't sized right, where the wire's going in between, having voltage drop and different things like that is going to kill the voltage for the transformer and the control board that's run by 24 volts. So they don't want you to have any kind of voltage dip, so you need to power their evaporators independently, right? So you can't have the condensing unit powering the evaporator. You can't have the lighting circuit tied into the evaporators. Very interesting information. So, all right, let's see what else we got in here. Chris, could we get introduced to the crew if I'm there? Okay with it. Oh yeah, Jake, that's actually going to be, yeah, dude. Yeah, it's, if everything goes well, the Heatcraft stuff is going to be awesome. So the Heatcraft stuff, if that's what you're talking about, when I go there, we're going to do interviews and there's going to be camera work. Everybody, you know, we're going to have people on camera answering questions. This is going to be fun. I'm really interested because I don't want to spill all the beans, but it's going to be, the plans are that it's going to be a video that I release. It's going to be like a podcast / live stream on my channel at Heatcraft Refrigeration asking questions. So it should be pretty cool. It's been a fun project so far. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Because EEV is used as pump down solenoid, no need for wires between condenser and evaporator. Is that what I'm assuming someone asks? So how do you diagnose compressor valve damage? John Deere fan. Depending on what compressor you're working with, you want to lean on the manufacturers. Tecumseh has a great smartphone app. Copeland has a great smartphone app. Danfoss has a lot of smartphone information or apps out there too. And they all have information on how to diagnose their individual compressors. And it's very important to lean on the manufacturers. I can't help but share a plug for my really, really good friend, Trevor Matthews at refrigerationmentor.com. Trevor is a really cool dude, actually used to work as a training person for Copeland compressors. And Trevor is a super smart dude. He does all kinds of training classes. I've been to one of his online training classes. It is lots of great knowledge. So definitely check out refrigerationmentor.com. You can find a lot of information about compressors. He actually gives a lot of free information too. So, but lean on the manufacturers, download the apps. It's going to help you to diagnose the compressors. And it's going to let you know the way that they should operate. So let me get to my list of things. I already had a really long discussion about that. Wow, cool. I'm going through my list and I realize I've already talked about a lot of this stuff. I get this question a lot. Why don't I rebuild my motors? Why don't I rebuild compressor contactors? They're not that difficult. It's really easy. It's a $4 bearing. You can just go get silver and resolder the silver onto the contactor point. Oh, that's easy. You're a hack. These are all little questions that I get. It's not practical, right? But to each their own. To me, it's not practical. Maybe to you as a person, it seems really smart to rebuild a motor. But oftentimes when you're dealing with customers have an expectation that when you touch it, you own it and you fixed it. So to come into a customer and put a used part on there that you don't necessarily know if there's other damage to, right? Oftentimes, if you have a motor that's been overheating for a long time, yeah, it might be that the bearings have failed, but that thing has been overheating so long that you might have damaged the windings in the motor. And you know how difficult it is to train people to do HVACR work? It's pretty difficult. But then you start adding electrical motor rewinding and different things like that, the liability just gets bigger and bigger. So when it comes to installing a new motor because it had failed bearings, for the most part, on the lower end motors like I work on. Now you get into heavy industrial and yeah, you're probably rebuilding stuff all the time. You're rebuilding compressors, motors, different things like that. But for the most part, it's not practical and it's not economical for me to try to rebuild a motor or to rely on my employees to rebuild it or to solder the points of a contactor. Like, that doesn't even sound smart to me anyways. But I mean, still, the point I'm trying to make is it's just not smart as a business owner to try to do that stuff for me. It just doesn't work. I already answered those questions. Let's get to the chat. How can you get the evaporator motors to run on defrost when the heaters are bad on a walk-in freezer? You got a lot of work there to do, Mr. Green, but it's possible. With some ingenuity and understanding on how the system works, you can get it running, right? But it just depends on the equipment you're working on. If this is older equipment, a bad defrost clock, I mean, put a new defrost clock in there. But I mean, if you want to make the system run, you can do it. But the downside to running a walk-in freezer, with a bad defrost clock is the potential of extremely low superheat causing damage to the compressor. So when you run a walk-in freezer for a consistent amount of times and ice starts to build up, because it will, because when you drop the box temp below freezing, your condensation and your different stuff is going to cause ice. It's inevitable. So that's why we have a defrost clock. But if you're going to try to run a system, a walk-in freezer, without a defrost clock for an extended period of time, that evaporator is going to build up ice within a day for sure, if not sooner. And that ice eventually is going to start completely restricting the airflow on that coil, and it's going to cause your system to ice up. Once your system ice up, then you're going to have lower superheat and the higher potential for liquid refrigerant to come back to that compressor. The liquid refrigerant typically is going to wash the oil out of the compressor, and the compressor is eventually going to die a slow death. So is there a way to do it? Yeah. Is it a smart thing to do? No. I mean, is it safe to do it just for a night? It's not a good idea. It really isn't. The potential of that system icing up without some sort of an off cycle is really high. So I would not suggest it, but it is possible if you know what you're doing. All right, let's see. Do I prefer to work on hermetic compressors or semi-hermetic compressors? I mean, there's goods and bads. Semi-hermetic compressors are rebuildable. On older systems, it was really easy to check the operation to make sure that you didn't have bad reed plates on the compressors. You could simply front seat valves, run the compressor into a vacuum, and then do a test by turning the system off and then watching how high the pressures rise. You could test on semi-hermetic was fun, but change a semi-hermetic that's 20 horsepower compressor and you tell me what fun is. I've never done that, but I know it's going to be a disaster trying to move that thing around. You're using mechanical advantage on everything. You're using pulleys and chains and different things to move the compressor. So do I like hermetic? Do I like semi-hermetic? I mean, they all serve a purpose. The newer compressors, you can argue that they don't last as long. I don't know if I buy that one. They're just more susceptible to damage, in my opinion. But new compressors are efficient. They can give you the best bang for your buck. They can drop your energy bills. They can do all kinds of cool stuff. So change is inevitable. As an industry, we need to do a better job of being acceptable of change. And I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. Why in the heck do I not use a torch or a heat gun to melt the ice on walk-in freezers? Because in my opinion, it's completely inefficient to use a heat gun, a torch to melt ice on an evaporator. My buddy Brett Wetzel, Brett, you're going to have to tell this story on your channel, okay? Because I keep promoting the story, but people need to come hear it from you. But Brett Wetzel on the Advanced Refrigeration podcast, if he's not in here anymore, y'all need to message Brett and tell him that you want to hear the defrosting the walk-in evaporator with a torch story. And I'm not going to tell it anymore. I want Brett to tell it on his channel because he needs that attention. Brett has an amazing story to tell about using a torch to melt ice on an industrial evaporator and what happened because they did that. Now, the points that I'm going to make, it doesn't seem efficient for me to use a torch or a heat gun. Now, there's certain instances where I'm going to argue that, yeah, it might be more efficient, right? When, you know, you're working in a freezer, like for instance, the story that Brett will tell you, when you're working in an industrial freezer that they're not shutting down, it's not getting turned off like your restaurant walk-in freezer so you can melt the ice. You're working in there with one evaporator down with 20 other evaporators maintaining the temperature in that room. You're in full-on igloo gear and you're still freezing your ass off. You still can't spend very much time in that freezer. Okay, you try to run a water hose over to that evaporator and it's going to instantly freeze. And I don't care how hot that water is, it's not going to stand the amount of volume that freezer has to, you know, anyways. So for me, a torch doesn't make sense. Hot water is your best friend. Cold water is better than a torch. Okay. I've many times I've had to defrost a walk-in freezer with cold water. It's fine. It's a massive temperature differential. It works, but water is super efficient. The only thing with water though, that you have to be careful is you can't let it get on the floor. It's a disaster if you get water on a walk-in freezer floor. If it's a raised floor, you're potentially going to cost that customer a lot of money because if you get water on a raised walk-in freezer floor, that water seeps through the cracks and gets under the floor. Okay. Then that water refreezes and lifts up the floor. And now the customer has to spend minimum of $6,000 to have their floor replaced in their freezer. Yeah, it was iced up, but you could have done something to not get that water on the floor, right? So you put buckets, you do what you have to do when you have water. But in my opinion, water for what I do is the most efficient thing. How often do I encounter hail damaged coils? Down here in California, we don't get hail but once or twice a year, and it's tiny peanut style hail, super tiny stuff. So we don't really have to deal with that where we're at. I know in the Midwest and stuff like that, you need to be having hail guards on your equipment for sure. So I'll scroll down the chat and see what I'm missing in here. That's funny. You have some large semis, 06, 08s, Ds, and E models. Yeah, Jason Johnson does a lot of cool stuff. Jason's a cool guy, and he works for a really cool dude too. So it's awesome. Let's see. You use the hot water, you can shut down the system in the restaurant. Yeah, I use hot water. And I don't know if that's what you're saying, Mike B, but you know what's interesting? Oftentimes, I mean, I don't have pity for this one either. I'll drain their water heaters. I'll use more water than their water heaters can produce, and I'll start to notice the water starts getting cold as I'm melting the evaporator, but, you know, it is what it is. So I do have to say, there are about 3 or 4 refrigeration and air conditioning, I'm just going to call them manufacturers. There's about 3 or 4 ones. I just think this is funny that keep emailing me that will not get the hint. I have not answered, I kid you not, 10 plus of every one of your emails, and yet you keep emailing me. Get the hint, okay, guys? If you email me a bunch of times, I'm talking to manufacturers, not my viewers. If you email me a bunch of times and I don't answer the emails, do not send me reminders. Hey, just following up on this one. Wanted to see if you're interested. Hey, just checking in. Wanted to see if you're interested. Hey, just over and over and over again. Get the hint, manufacturers. If I don't answer your emails the first time, I don't want to work with you, okay? I just thought that was funny because it made me laugh. These particulars, there's like 3 or 4 that just keep emailing. Sometimes I wonder, like, what the heck, man? What are these people thinking? All right. See what else we got kind of. Would PEX be an option for drains in California? Caden, I don't know, man. PEX, I don't know. I don't know if it's allowed to be used as drains. I know they use it like in like beer systems as drains, like on beer refrigeration equipment and stuff. Sometimes they'll use PEX for drains, but I don't know if you're allowed to use it for like legit plumbing drains. I don't know. Let's see what else we got going on here. Ever tap right off the tankless water heater? No, Mike B. I have a story. One of my former employees, he was actually a family member. He was actually my mentor. I learned from him. He used to, I shouldn't have said my employees, one of our employees, because I wasn't running anything back then. I was still a baby apprentice. But he was working at a restaurant back when he worked with us, and he filled up a pump sprayer with hot water from the water heater, and he was pumping it up, and the pump sprayer ruptured, and he had jean pants on, and it hit his jeans, and he literally couldn't get his jeans off fast enough. He was in the hospital for 3 days because of the burns that he got on his inner thighs, because he filled a pump sprayer, you know, like a chemical pump sprayer that we use to defrost things, and he pumped it up like 6 times, and the side of the chemical sprayer exploded and just burnt him with all the hot water. That was a crazy, crazy story. I remember going into the hospital. He was all drugged up. His wife was there like crying. And I was like, what did I just walk into? Like, this dude looked like he was on his deathbed. Now, it was more severe just because they had him drugged up. That's why. But still, he had some serious burns on his leg. Would removing a VFD in a unit and moving it inside the building cause any problems? No, as long as it's installed to all code, a VFD can be installed. I mean, just making sure the manufacturer of the VFD, of course, allows it to be installed, but I can't see someone who wouldn't, but you never know. And it needs to be installed in a proper enclosure and be wired in properly. But in that situation, if you can move a VFD, a variable frequency drive, into a conditioned space that has filtration, that VFD is probably going to last for a lot longer than it would being up in a package unit or outside, for sure. If you can get it out of the elements and keep it in controlled humidity levels, VFD will last a very long time, but it needs to be cooled. It can't just be shoved in a hole in a closet and overheat itself, but you got to have proper conditioning, but they'll last a lot longer there. I do want to talk about In a recent video, I talked about the CoreMax tool, and you guys remember something, and I try to say this in my videos a lot. I got so many people reaching out saying that CoreMax is a ripoff, it's a scam, it's a horrible thing, they refuse to buy that tool. Then so be it. It's okay. I'm not saying anybody has to use a tool. When I find a tool that I like that works for me, I like to share it. It doesn't have to be perfect for everybody else. And remember, it's okay for you not to like someone and to have someone else do something, right? You know what? I know that pulling an evacuation through a manifold gauge set is not right, but I still do it sometimes. I mean, there's sometimes you have to be practical. Sometimes you can only do what you can do. So the CoreMax tool, the point I'm trying to make about that, I don't like CoreMax fittings. I don't like them. They're flawed. They go bad all the time. They leak. A normal Schrader, in my opinion, lasts twice as long, if not 4 times as long as a CoreMax fitting. Okay. CoreMax fittings were made for a reason because they're high flow. They allow a lot of refrigerant. They allow a large vacuum evacuation, like different things to go through them at one time, okay? But the point, like I started this stream with, is I'm not here to change the world. I'm here to do my thing and share my knowledge, okay? So even though I don't like the CoreMax fittings, they're there. They're on systems all over the place. So they have a tool that you can take the CoreMax fitting out under pressure. It's kind of like a vacuum core remover, but not the same, okay? Because you can't pull flow through it. You just pull the fitting out. You know, you're not going to pull an evacuation on the system. But they make the CoreMax tool, and it saves me time, so I buy it, okay? Yeah, that tool cost me like $600, okay? It was a lot of money. But I've made my money back on that tool, okay? Whenever I sell a CoreMax fitting, I have a small fee built into that fitting, all right? And I charge a small fee for the tool, so it works for me, but it doesn't have to work for you. You don't have to do that. You can put a swivel tee on a CoreMax fitting and it'll last forever. Okay, you can do that. So you do you, I'll do me. Okay, all right. You unbraze all CoreMax fittings every opportunity you get. I mean, if I have an opportunity, sure, but am I gonna walk up to a system that has a small leak on it and pull the refrigerant, change the, like, no, not necessarily. You know, I mean, and I'm not thinking that you're saying that either. I mean, but when I get an opportunity, yeah, I'll pull them out and put a normal T there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you can, smash the like button, everybody. Someone had emailed me just commenting. They were commenting on my video about the one where the electrician just butchered the AC electrical job. So anyways, they were commenting about how all tradesmen, this was clearly not a tradesman. Okay, this is probably an owner that's soured by someone, but he said, you know, all tradesmen are there to rip everybody off, you know, blah, blah, blah. The same thing. And you have an opinion, and I applaud you for expressing your opinion. Good for you, okay? Because more of us need to speak our minds, even though sometimes it's not always going to be the right things to come out. We need to be better. We need to not bottle things up. We need to just get it out, okay? So with that being said, though, I'm sorry that you have been wronged so many times by tradesmen. Not all tradesmen are horrible. Not all tradesmen are thieves. There is a lot of thieves. Unfortunately, I'm going to go out on a limb and probably say there's more bad tradesmen than there is good tradesmen. I hate to say that, but in my heart, I believe that to be true, okay? But we're fighting the good fight. We're trying to better ourselves. There is good people out there. You just have to look. Understand something, though. Good people are not cheap, nor will they ever be cheap. Good people know their worth. And if you don't want to pay their worth, so be it. But that good person is going to continue doing what they do. That good tradesman is worth what they charge. Okay? If you don't like it, you're free to move on. But there is good people out there. Okay? Jason Johnson, the moderator in here right now. Jason made a post actually today, and I wanted to talk about that post. So he made a post about the new Linux package units with I think it's the core controller. Okay, so it's their the M1 circuit boards that they've used in the past, the M1.8, M1.2s, M1s, whatever, right? Prodigy controllers, all those different ones. Linux has always had a pretty interesting circuit boards and pretty interesting stuff. Linux, in my opinion, was one of the first air conditioning manufacturers that I personally came across. I know there might have been someone before them, but they were one of the first companies that I came across that had ports to be able to hook your laptops up to. Now, we're talking light commercial refrigeration and air conditioning, okay? I'm not talking crazy industrial, because I know you guys have had controls and different things for years. But in light commercial, Linux was one of the first ones that I experienced. I can remember on their old L series units buying the PC 16-pin conversion thing to a printer port to be able to connect to your computer to install their program and be able to basically kind of dial up to the unit and look at it. I mean, it's really interesting. So anyways, Linux has their new technology. It's their new package unit, and there's a lot of hate towards it. Okay. So be it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But understand something. We have a lot of change and we need to embrace change. If you don't embrace change, you're just going to be miserable your entire life. Okay. Stop being miserable. It's inevitable that change happens. Technology's coming into our trade. Majority of the time, I'm going to say, a lot of people hate manufacturers for the new technology to come out. But in all honesty, manufacturers don't really want to innovate their stuff if they're making money, unless they have to. And a lot of manufacturers have to innovate because, they're being told to by government organizations. Okay. They have to increase efficiency. They have to do these things. They have to install these new head pressure control valves. So oftentimes there's going to be change coming. So I embrace change. Now, Linux has a new package unit that you set up with your phone. You download an app on it, you power the system up, and you go through your phone and you program the whole unit. It's really interesting looking, okay? Is there going to be flaws? I'm sure there's going to be hiccups that they run into. Every manufacturer has them, okay? But I do like Linux equipment. I really do. I've always been a fan of Linux, at least their commercial stuff. I don't have experience with their residential stuff, although I am considering them. But anyways, I need to stay in my lane and go with the low-cost inverter system, because then that way I'm not curious. That's what I said earlier. I'm made the decision that I think I want to go with a low-cost inverter system on my own home, like a EcoAir or a Bosch. And because then that way I'm only out a couple $1,000s and I'm not into it, $15,000, $20,000 for a new system. I think I need to start cheap. But anyways, I digress. Going off on a tangent as usual. Linux has got the new system. Jason made a post. There was good and bad comments in there, hate, and there was love for it and all these different things. But change is coming, so we just need to have fun with it. It's an opportunity to learn again. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on here. Going through the chat. Reading in here. Okay. All right. So that was a really cool post. I've been trying to be more active on social media. Not necessarily just posting, but more or less interacting in different groups and stuff. And I find more enjoyment out of it because I focus so much on the videos and the promotion of it. Sometimes I forget to just go on social media and just have conversations with people. And it's fun and it's nice. And there's a lot of good conversations out there. Why is it that I don't like using CO2 to blow drains out? Someone heard me say that in a recent video and they were talking about it in my chat. So I personally have bad experiences with using compressed gas to blow out drain lines, okay? And here's what I'm going to tell you. I typically like using water to blow out drain lines. I don't like using CO2. In my experience, and I've had this happen probably 2 times where it really bit me hard as far as having callbacks and different things, because myself or one of my technicians used compressed gas to blow out a drain line on a walk-in cooler or on an air conditioner. The way that my head works and the way that I see this, and I could be wrong, I'm sure someone will tell me if I am, and I welcome it, so please do, okay? But if I go to blow out a walk-in cooler drain with compressed gas, that gas will sometimes bypass the restriction in the pipe, because if there's dirt and mud built up in there and it's all dried up, the gas will sometimes bypass it, go through other passageways, versus if you use water and you completely fill that pipe up with high pressure water, that water scrubs the walls of that pipe and pushes the object out. So in my experience, compressed gases aren't that good for blowing out drains. When you're working on reaching coolers sometimes too, compressed gases can be problematic, because on the old Hvacr systems, if you would use compressed gas to blow out the pan chiller drains, you literally would blow the drain, like the very, very old ones, the very first ones, you would blow the drains apart inside the box, and then the box would be trash. So you got to be careful, especially using CO2, because oftentimes when we're using CO2, at least in my area, nobody uses regulators on CO2. They just put a little adapter on there and do full pressure. That's a lot of pressure, so be cautious about that. Let's see what else we got in here. Train isn't that hard once you understand them. And that's a great point, Jason says. Jason Johnson said, train is not that hard once you understand them. I've said this many times. I have manufacturers that I prefer, right? When it comes to ice machines, I prefer to work on Hoshizaki. I prefer to work on Manitowoc. When it comes to air conditioners, I prefer to work on Lennox and Carrier, right? I don't prefer to work on Trane or York. I don't prefer to work on Scotsman or, the other manufacturers, right? I think a lot of our frustration and anger and hate comes from fear of the unknown, right? If I don't know the particulars of a Scotsman ice machine, then I'm going to struggle on it, and it's going to be a challenge, and I may not be as confident in my repairs. Okay. So given the opportunity, if you're asking what I truly like to work on, it's Hoshizaki and Manitowoc, because I work on those a lot and I know them really well, and they're predictable because I know them. Right. So sometimes, we may say that we hate this brand. This brand sucks, but just understand, maybe you just don't understand that brand. The people that do understand, they may prefer that brand, and so be it. When people email me and they say, what's the best brand of air conditioner I should buy, right? I get residential homeowners doing that, or business owners saying, what's the best brand of ice machine that I can buy? And my answer is usually an answer somewhat like, who do you use for service and what do they prefer to work on? Because, yeah, every piece of equipment is going to have problems. Every ice machine is going to need to be cleaned. Every this or that is going to have issues, right? And if you have a contractor that's confident and knows how to work on that equipment, your experience with that piece of equipment is going to be much better than if you decide by asking some dude on YouTube what his favorite brand is, and then your contractor has no idea how to work on it, and then that's just going to create issues. Right? So I feel like most of the time we go out there and we say, we don't like this brand. I don't like Trane because they're so hard. They're so complicated. Well, actually, they're not for the guys that know what they're doing. Even I'm not super confident on Trane, but I understand more than I did 20 years ago. I understand the concept of they're using resistance as zone sensors all over the place, right? And, it's not just, we think when we're working on normal air conditioners, it's 24 volts goes here and that goes here and that tells it to turn on. When with the Trane unit, they may not be sending 24 volts downstairs. They may be sending something else, and they're using resistors to simulate certain conditions to tell you that it's hot or cold, and they're looking at resistance values. And so there's all kinds of cool information out there. It's something interesting once you start looking into it. But yet when we're put in a position to work on it, we'll often say that one sucks because we hate it, But what is hate really? So anyways, all right, let's see what else we got going on here. We always use, Mike B says, Hoshizakis will run and run and run and run. Yeah, you are absolutely true. We always used to joke that you could weld a Hoshizaki shut. It may not be clean inside, but that thing will run a lot longer than most other ice machine manufacturers weld it shut. Now, eventually there's going to be problems, but they're very, they're not as susceptible to slime. And you'll tend to see slime on a lot of the plastic evaporators. Well, actually, Hoshi uses plastic too, but they use stainless steel for their evaporator plates, and it's just a whole different process. But, all right. Reading through the chat. Aeons look complicated, but you are understanding their process. Frost, I've always been so interested in learning how to work on Aeons. I know a lot of people hate on them, but they just look really interesting to me. So, all right. I'm going to read through my chat. Marco had a great... Oh, yeah, Marco said a really interesting, and I want to make sure Marco gets credit for this, okay? Because Marco's the first, I'm sure maybe there's someone else, but Marco's the person that said it to me first, okay? Marco takes Refrigeration Technologies soap bubbles, the Big Blue. He takes Big Blues, and he goes to the supply house, or Big Blue, and he goes to the supply house, or he finds an empty bottle of your Zoom spout oiler, and he fills that empty bottle with Big Blue and keeps it in his thing. Now, what's revolutionary about that? And, whether or not he came up with the idea or not, but I'm giving him credit. Like I said, what's revolutionary about that? I used to carry soap bubbles with a little dauber, but once you learned how to use a lot of these things, you realize that dauber creates more bubbles and doesn't show you true leaks. Refrigeration Technologies, the secret in their Big Blue soap bubbles is the consistency and the viscosity of their fluid. And when you put it on there, you know, either by pouring it on or squeezing it on or spraying it on, you know, as long as there's not a bunch of bubbles, you can see leaks that sometimes you won't even pick up with leak detectors, depending on how accurate they are. So the idea that he said was to fill one of those zoom spout oilers with their big blue. That's a really smart idea. So I thought that was really cool, Marco, and I'm going to try doing that too myself. So you guys should definitely try that. All right, let me see what else we got going on here. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to be passing that on, and I'm going to give Marco credit too, because I have an ear. I have direct contact with Refrigeration Technologies, and I'm going to pass that on to them, and I'm going to suggest that they come out with a dauber, and I'm going to make sure that Marco gets credit for it too. So, because that's a really cool idea. So, really, really cool. All right. What about using osmosis? Yeah. How do you say it? It's not osmosis water? It's there's a name for it anyways, but deionized or whatever. But it's basically, what about using that for ice machines? Will it help the health of the machine? No, oftentimes it'll change the positive and negative particles in the water, and it can actually cause issues with some ice machines. So some of the early Manitowoc ice machines, they would use they would have issues with waters that didn't have a lot of mineral content in them, and their water level probes look to ground out against the water. And when you don't have a lot of minerals in your water, then the water is not conductive, and it wouldn't be a good ground source. So they found that water that was over filtered was actually affecting the way that their machines operate. Now they've fixed that, and it's not a problem anymore because they use sonar. But all right, so. What about using, oh, I already answered that question. Reverse osmosis. There you go. So, RO water. That's what I was looking for. All right. So great tip, Marco. And I'm definitely going to share that with Refrigeration Technologies. In my recent video, was the microchannel corrosion caused by improper coil cleaner? Okay, so here's my logic with the fact that I don't think it was coil cleaner. Yes, they do use a coil cleaning company, and the microchannel condenser was rotted away. But it's possible that it's from coil cleaner, but I did see corrosion on their other ACs also, okay? But I did not see corrosion on their refrigeration condensing units, okay? So it is possible, but I don't think so. I really do think that that is because of contaminants in the air, just because of other things that I kind of see in the location. There's a lot of rust and different things. And I know it's about, what did I say, 25 miles away from the ocean, but I still think it's from corrosion from something in the air. Maybe not salt, maybe it is something in the exhaust fans or something, but I've seen coil cleaner damage, and to me it just looks a little different. You typically tend to see a different corrosion, in my opinion, but you know, who knows? Regardless, the condenser needs to be changed. So why do I like belt-driven systems as opposed to direct drive systems? Because I don't like change. Just like I tell everybody out there to not be that person and to embrace change, I'm still flawed, and I still, you know, do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. So I like belt-driven systems because it's easier to work on them, in my opinion, and it's easier to get motors for them. I'm learning, and I realize the efficiency, and I'm getting better at it, but you know, I just had this conversation with an exhaust fan manufacturer last week because they're shipping an exhaust fan to a restaurant, and they're going to a direct drive with a VFD. And it's like, oh, that's going to be a pain in the butt to install in that restaurant. And I see a lot of failures in weird, odd locations where, man, if this was just belt drive, it wouldn't be an issue. You know, motors that go bad because of voltage issues, because of just weird circumstances. And you know, it's inevitable. You're going to have to change motors. But every time we have to change one, it's like a nightmare to get these motors because they're so OEM specific. So I'm just a creature of habit in some ways. So I'm trying to be better. I do want to talk about the fact that these live streams, you know, this is me talking. This is my knowledge. At the end of my videos, I typically have closing words. The closing words are to try to answer some questions that I know are going to come up from the video. It's a way for me to review so I literally re-watch my jobs 2 to 3 times every job that I film. I re-watch it over and over and over again. And as I'm watching those, I realize, hey, I could have done this differently. Hey, that's probably, that in the heat of the moment, I wasn't thinking straight and I did this instead of doing this. So I try to address those things in the comments. What are you doing? I swear my dog is trying to close my door. I try to address those things in the closing words. There's little bits of nuggets in the closing words that people don't even know, okay? This last video, if you didn't watch the closing words, you didn't get to hear my story. That was just great. So I made the video showing the condenser that was rotting away and there was a weird restriction in the system. Yes, that was odd. Okay. I don't know fully if that's overcharge. I don't know if that's a restriction, but regardless, the condenser needs to be changed. So when I change the condenser, I'll recover the charge. I'll sell them new gas on it. We'll weigh it in and we'll change the dryer and we'll go from there, right? So we'll address everything when I go back to change the condenser, because bottom line, that has to be changed. So why fuss over it too much when we're going to be changing the condenser? We'll deal with it then. But in the closing words, I share a story at the end of that video. And I said, you know, the funny thing was I was getting ready to leave that restaurant after I got done doing all that stuff to that AC. And I was getting ready to leave and I walked by the thermostat and I go, the thermostat says it's 64 degrees in this kitchen and it's like 80 in there. And I'm like, what the heck? You know, so I'm like, for real, I just did all that work and there's a problem with the thermostat. So I walk over and I'm trying to find the zone sensor, right? Because I pull the thermostat off the wall. You can see wires for a zone sensor. So I know there's one somewhere. So click it back on. I'm walking all around the restaurant. Can't find a zone sensor. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So then I have an idea. I go up onto the roof and I go into the unit and there's a zone sensor in the return air duct, which is pretty common. So, okay. And then it dawned on me. I know what happened. So I go back downstairs. Sure enough, they propped open their walk-in freezer door. About 2 feet from the walk-in freezer door is the return air duct for the kitchen AC, and it's sucking up that negative 10-degree air, and it's mixing with the building air. And by the time it's getting up to that zone sensor, it's telling the kitchen thermostat that it's 64 degrees in there. Good gosh. So I had just gotten after that kitchen for leaving the door open. So then I got to go grab the manager and say, you know how many times I was frustrated that I told you guys to shut the door? Come on over here. I want to show you something. And then I showed them what was going on. And I go, y'all need to keep that door shut, because when your kitchen is hot and you guys are complaining, it's going to be because you're propping the damn walk-in freezer door open. So that one kind of made me laugh. And that was a little nugget that I shared at the end of my video. The end of the video is a discussion about the video. So check it out. You'd be surprised the amount of information I share in there about the mistakes that I made, the stuff that you guys criticize me for. Oftentimes I find as I'm watching my video, reviewing my footage, and I talk about it in there. What do I do with my recovered gas? Ivan, I just take it to my supply house and they destroy it, do whatever they're going to do with it. I don't really play with any of the stuff where I try to get people to buy it or any of that stuff. Let's see. All right. Well, you must change the dryer every single time, every time. Yeah. When it needs to be changed, for sure. So, all right, I'm going to wrap this up. I really do appreciate everybody. Thank you, everybody out there, for the support. I will say it on here, and I'm going to announce it on social media. We actually did run out of the large, extra large hats for about 2 weeks. I've been talking about this. I think I told someone I was about to run out. I think I said it on one of the live streams. But we did run out for about 2 weeks or so of the large, extra large hats. My wife actually just counted them and got them installed. They're all sitting back here on my shelf. So we do have large, extra large hats available on my website. I apologize for running out. I'm trying to get better at ordering without over ordering again, like I told the story about. But I'm trying to find that happy medium. But thank you all for everybody that has supported the channel by purchasing a hat or a shirt or anything like that. It's great support, way to help support it. And I'm sorry, how many times am I going to say support? And gives my wife something to do, because that's her job. She packages the merch and folds and cleans and organizes and ships them off. So definitely thank you to everybody out there for doing that. I really do appreciate you. And I'm going to cue up the outro music. My daughter is currently staring at me. I think she's watching me on YouTube as she's watching me on YouTube from across the room right there. So you want to come say hi? Come say hi. All right. Well, you better hurry, because I'm closing the words right now. Everybody's leaving. So come here. Let my daughter come over and say hi to you guys. Come here. Come on. Come say hi. So if y'all watch my videos, during my videos, come on over here. This is my daughter, Caitlin. So during my videos, in the closing words, or I mean, as you're watching the videos, if you hit closed caption, there's captions that come across. That's my daughter's job right here. She's the one, she watches all my videos and she captions them for me. So that's her job here. My wife helps out with this. My other daughter's going to be helping out. So this is my daughter. Say hi. Now get out of here. All right. And she's not going to listen to me. Oh, she left. All right, cool. That was kind of weird. But I was looking at the screen when she's still there in my image right now. So that's kind of weird because there's like a delay. But anyways, so that was kind of funny. She was looking at me from across the room. But all right. So I really appreciate y'all. I'm going to close this out. We will, ooh, if I can do that right. Let me hit that. Let me hit that. Let me close that. And there we go, right there. All right. I will catch you on the next one. Check out the website, hvacrvideos.com. Thank you so very much.